Now I'm going to go ahead and share my desktop with you. So in just a moment, you're going to see your screen. Change over to my desktop. Let me minimize that document there. So at this time, we are viewing the desktop, and so the very first thing that I'm going to do here is open up my TurningPoint software. Now what I want everybody to notice is that when TurningPoint opens up, it's going to be automatically also opening up Microsoft PowerPoint. The reason TurningPoint does this is because it's completely integrated with PowerPoint. It's basically 100% the same. So if we take a look at the very top of the screen, notice how I have all these tabs up here. I have a home tab.
I have a question where you start out.
Yes, go ahead.
They had me put two things. You got down to what is that, TurningPoint Anywhere?
Sure.
And then the other was the TurningPoint.
Okay,
so I have both of those loaded.
The difference.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Alan, I cut you off there. Go ahead.
Okay, so both of those are loaded on mine. That's as far as I got. So.
Very good. Now, there is a difference between the two pieces of software, but both software works with the same hardware, which are the response cards and the receiver.
Okay.
Now, what I thought we'd do is today talk about TurningPoint. And, of course, TurningPoint is the software that's completely integrated with PowerPoint. So if you're using PowerPoint, TurningPoint is a software that basically builds slides that are interactive within that PowerPoint presentation.
Okay.
Now, let's say that you're not using PowerPoint and you're using any other sort of application. So maybe you're streaming a movie, you're showing a PDF document, or you just want to ask your students verbal questions. TurningPoint Anywhere is an application that does not integrate into PowerPoint or anything else for that matter. So it allows you to pull in basically any environments. Okay, so that's the difference between the two pieces of software. Now, the software does work with the same exact hardware, which are the response cards and the receiver, but depending on how you're using the polling depends on which one of these pieces of software you'd want to use. So if you are predominantly nothing but PowerPoint and you want there to be interactive slides within the presentation, then TurningPoint is what you want to use. If you know you don't really use too much of PowerPoint and you're going to be doing things outside of that, TurningPoint Anywhere is an excellent piece of software because it doesn't actually integrate with anything else.
Okay.
Okay, does that clear it up there, Alan?
Yeah, because we're a Milady school, so we have syllabus from that we bring in. And so we want to interact with that also. So
definitely, absolutely.
Okay.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll go through TurningPoint, and if we have a little bit of time at the end, I'll definitely open up TurningPoint Anywhere and take a look at that. If we get an opportunity just to see the difference, and also show you how easy it is to work with TurningPoint Anywhere. Sound all right with you?
Sure.
All right. So once again, I just opened up TurningPoint, which remember TurningPoint is a software that's part of PowerPoint. So with an opening up of TurningPoint, it automatically also opens up a blank PowerPoint presentation. Now at the very top of the page, I can see I have a Home tab, Insert, Design, all the way down to View. If you're a PowerPoint user, should be very familiar because these are our standard everyday PowerPoint tabs that we would always have in there. But now down to the far left-hand side, I have an additional tab called TurningPoint 2008. When I click on this TurningPoint 2008 tab, notice how it changed my PowerPoint toolbar over to something that we're going to refer to as the TurningPoint ribbon. So you're going to hear me say the word ribbon probably about 20 times in this training. Anytime that I say the word ribbon, I'm referring to where all of these interactive icons are located. So from my Information tab all the way down to my Help tab, those are dealing with the interactive TurningPoint slides. Now do notice how I can easily move back and forth between regular PowerPoint by clicking on the Home tab and also my TurningPoint 2008 tab, which brings up my TurningPoint ribbon. So as you're creating presentation, the entire presentation is not going to be nothing but TurningPoint slides, probably not. And the entire presentation is not going to be anything but just PowerPoint. You're going to have some PowerPoint slides in there, and intermittently you're going to have mixed in interactive TurningPoint slides. So, okay, that's what we're going to talk about today, exactly the steps of going ahead and creating those presentations and also running them. Now, if you already have an existing PowerPoint presentation, which if you're probably a PowerPoint user, you do, and you don't necessarily want to recreate all those PowerPoint slides within TurningPoint, you just want to be able to take TurningPoint slides and mix them in with the existing PowerPoint. If this is the case, you first of all want to open up the TurningPoint software as I've done. When TurningPoint opens up, of course, it opens up a blank PowerPoint presentation. Now that this blank PowerPoint presentation is opened up, I can now go ahead and open up any other PowerPoint presentation I want to, regardless of when this presentation was created. So I opened up TurningPoint first, and then I opened up my existing PowerPoint. Now that I've done this, take a look at the upper left-hand corner of my page. I have my TurningPoint 2008 tab, which tells me that I have the integration with the TurningPoint software. Do you guys have any questions this time regarding the integration that TurningPoint has with PowerPoint?
No.
All right, now my agenda today. I'm going to cover things very logically, Alan, the same way that you guys will do it. I'm going to make sure I train it in that order. So we'll talk about what must be done before a presentation, during, as well as after a presentation. Now, if we take a look at my very first bullet, before a presentation involves two things. It involves, first and foremost, installing the software, and then second, it involves actually constructing our presentation, because we can't actually run a presentation until we build one. Now, Alan, I know you said you already downloaded the TurningPoint software onto the computer, so I'm not going to spend too much time on how this is done, but I do want to let everybody know that installing the software is free of charge, and there's two different places to install it from. First of all, when you purchase the hardware, which you guys did with those response cards and the receiver, contained in that kit is a CD. The CD contains the TurningPoint software, and including the TurningPoint Anywhere software, we can install it directly from there. Now, if you don't have the CD, you can go ahead and install the software directly from our website, which is turningtechnologies.com. Now, the reason I'm mentioning all this is that it is completely 100% necessary to have TurningPoint installed to both create a presentation as well as run a presentation. If we don't have TurningPoint installed, we do not have any interactive slides. If we don't have TurningPoint installed, we're not going to have an interactive presentation. Okay, so TurningPoint must be installed to both create a presentation as well as run it. Now, after we install the software, the next thing that we're going to do is create the presentation. Now, remember, we have one of two ways to create. We can either create a presentation from scratch by just opening up TurningPoint, which automatically also opens up PowerPoint. From there, you go back and forth between standard PowerPoint slides and your interactive TurningPoint to have a completed presentation. Now, if you already have an existing PowerPoint, you can go ahead and integrate these TurningPoint slides within that existing PowerPoint by opening up TurningPoint first and then that existing presentation, as I have done. Take a look at my PowerPoint right now. There are no TurningPoint slides in here as of this time. But because I opened up TurningPoint first and then the PowerPoint presentation, it gives me the integration. So let's say immediately following slide number 2, we want there to be an interactive TurningPoint slide. Well, since we're talking about TurningPoint, I need to make sure that I go to my TurningPoint 2008 tab, which brings up this ribbon. From my ribbon, makes sense, and I'm going to come over to the icon which reads Insert Slide and left click. Now, when I left click on Insert Slide, notice how it gives me a number of different slide options. Now, for our purposes today, let's go ahead and discuss the slides that you guys are going to be using just about 100% of the time, especially as you're just getting started. And it's going to be the top 6, so from the vertical slide down to the donut slide. These are what we refer to as chart slides, or in other words, these are the slide types where your students or audience would see the question, they would pick up their response card and answer it, and then whatever we decide from here, that's how our audience is going to view their results. So if we want them to view their results from the question in a vertical chart format, at this time we would insert a vertical slide. That's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to left click on vertical slide. Now that I've done this, what you're going to notice is that I've built it right in as slide number 3 within this PowerPoint presentation. It's basically just another PowerPoint slide. It's just going to be an interactive PowerPoint slide. And I want you to think of these slides just like that. These are interactive PowerPoint. It's still a PowerPoint presentation. These TurningPoint slides are not that far removed from regular PowerPoint. They just become interactive when we take them live in the presentation. Now that I have this TurningPoint slide inserted, I have just 3 required steps to be 100% done with this slide if I would like to be. My first required step is to type out my question. Step 1 is done. My second required step is to type out up to my 10 possible answer choices. Step 2 is done. My third and final required step is to bring my cursor outside the segmented box and left click one time. Now that I've done this, it has populated 3 evenly distributed bar graphs, and these bar graphs do indeed correlate with my 3 answer choices. Now go ahead and take a look at the 33% on top of each bar. You may be thinking to yourself, where is this 33% even coming from? Well, it's just the software letting me know that I have 3 choices and it's splitting it up equally. My audience is not going to see this 33%. They're going to see their results after they answer the question and after myself as the presenter shuts down polling. Remember, we're just creating a presentation. That's all we're doing right now, so the software is just letting me know that I have 3 answer choices. Now, before I ask you guys if you have any questions, let me go ahead and just recap the required steps of creating an interactive slide. First of all, decide where in the PowerPoint presentation it is you want one. Make sure that you bring up the Turning Point ribbon by clicking on that Turning Point 2008 tab. Come over to the icon which reads Insert Slide. Choose from one of the 6 chart types. Insert the slide into the presentation. And now you have 3 required steps. Step 1 is to type out the question. Step 2 is to type out up to the 10 possible answer choices. And step 3 is to left-click outside the box, which will now populate those charts. Case closed. Nothing else is required. I could take this live in the PowerPoint, and this slide is now interactive with my audience. Do you guys have any questions on creating your own basic interactive slides? Alan, go ahead.
After you put in the answer for question 1, or answer 1, how do you get answer 2 to come up? You just push enter and it goes to a number 2?
Right, exactly, and that's all I did was just press the enter button and it allowed me to go down to the second choice.
Okay, all right. And then if you happen to press enter and then decide, no, that's all the questions I want, and then you had a 4 up there but blank, how do you get that 4 removed?
All you got to do is just simply highlight it like I'm doing right now, backspace, and it gets rid of it.
Okay. Simple enough.
It's basically, yeah. It's a good question, Alan. I mean, it's basically just like PowerPoint, though. And, you know, often people, they see these Turning Point slides and they think it's something completely different than PowerPoint. But it's still PowerPoint, to be quite honest with you. It still has all the same functions, all the same mechanics, and it pretty much functions, like works the same way as PowerPoint. Like I said, it just becomes interactive when we take it in the presentation. But, you know, don't think of it as anything being too far removed from a standard PowerPoint slide, though.
Okay.
All right, so let's go ahead and insert a second chart slide. So back up to the Insert Slide tab. This time let's put in a distributed pie. Okay, so it builds it right into my presentation. We can now see it's slide number 4. And as we've learned, we have 3 required steps. Step number 1 is to type out a question. Required step number 2, up to our 10 possible answer choices. Once again, I'll go ahead and stick with 3. Remember, we could have up to 10. And my third and my final step, if I'd like it to be, all I'm doing is bringing my cursor outside that segmented box. I'm left-clicking 1 time, and as we can see, it populated my 3 evenly distributed pieces of the pie. Now, as we've learned, nothing else is required beyond this. This slide is now an interactive Turning Point slide. That's all I had to do was the 3 required steps. But go ahead and take a look at my question here. Where is Turning Tech located? Well, this is a little bit different than how was your day, because how was your day doesn't necessarily have a right or wrong answer choice. Or on the other hand, Turning Tech does. So I have an additional step here, and my additional step is to go ahead and set a correct answer choice. So if you need to set a correct answer choice, this is going to be done on the right-hand side of the slide where we have our menu pane. So take a look at my menu pane on the far right-hand side of your screen. And the last thing on there reads Answer Values. Now in this case, answer choice number 1 is the correct choice. Therefore, I'm going to click on my first drop-down menu, select Correct. Now notice how that made answer choice 2 and 3 for Cleveland and Dallas incorrect. So if I need to, I'll set a correct answer choice on the right-hand side of my menu pane in the last option where I have Answer Values. Now, I do want to move forward and just talk about some additional objects that could be placed into the slide. The key word here is additional. In fact, everything that I'm showing you beyond the 3 steps is additional. Absolutely nothing else is required for these slides to work when you bring them live in the presentation. Now, if I'm interested in additional objects, I'm going to come up to the ribbon, and it would just seem to make sense, right? insert object to put in these additional objects. So when I click on insert object, you can see it gives me a drop-down menu. And I'm going to talk about two of the most popular features that individuals like to use. The first one's the countdown. The countdown is a timer which sets a limit to how long our audience has to answer this particular question. So when I click on the countdown, do notice how it places it in the lower right-hand corner of the slide, and it reads 20 seconds. Now, if I want to increase or decrease the amount of time my audience will have, I'll go ahead and left-click in between the 2 and the 0. This is now going to ask me to enter a value anywhere between 1 and 999 seconds. I'm going to go ahead and type out 25, press OK, and as you can see, my countdown timer has changed. Now, as I've been mentioning right from the beginning, this is still basically a PowerPoint slide. So just like in PowerPoint, if I don't like the location of something, it can be moved. Just like in PowerPoint, if I don't like the size of an object, I can increase the size, or in this case with a chart, decrease the size. Also, let's say that my question is really long and I need to decrease the font size. I can highlight it, go to my Home tab, and decrease it as I feel necessary. Okay, so just like PowerPoint, the only difference is where we went to insert the slide. We went to the Turning Point ribbon, and we went through those 3 required steps. Now, I do have one additional object I'd like to show you. So back up to my Insert Object tab on the ribbon, and this one's going to be located at the 3rd option from the bottom, which reads Correct Answer Indicator. This is going to do just that. Indicate to my audience once polling closes down which answer choice was the correct one. So everything on the right-hand side does the same thing, just looks a little bit different. So if I click on the check mark, of course it's displaying next to Youngstown right now because Youngstown was the choice that I set as correct. Now, before I ask you guys if you have any additional questions, let me just go ahead and take a moment to briefly recap how we got to this point. So remember, I first of all opened up TurningPoint. That was the first thing that I did. And when I opened up TurningPoint, it opened up a blank presentation. Since I already had an existing PowerPoint I wanted to integrate these slides within, I next opened that up. I decided where in the presentation it was that I want there to be an interactive slide. I clicked on my TurningPoint 2008 tab, which brought up my ribbon, and went to the Insert Slide tab. I chose from one of the 6 chart types. After I inserted the slide, we had just 3 required steps to be completely done with the slide if we would like to be. Step number 1 was the question. Step number 2 was up to 10 answer choices. Step number 3, left-click outside the box. Nothing else is required. The second slide, we did the exact same 3 steps, although we took this a little bit further. We set a correct answer choice on the far right-hand side where we have answer values. And we also inserted 2 additional objects from that Insert Object tab, starting with the countdown timer, which sets a limit, and the other one, of course, was the correct answer indicator, which gives your audience visual confirmation as to which answer choice was correct once you shut down polling. So Alan and company, do you guys have any questions regarding creating your own Turning Point slides?
No, but you are going to get into how this one slide has several progressions in it when you're actually doing the presentation?
Absolutely, Alan. So we're going to get there in terms of running the presentation, how all these come in, and what the sequence looks like.
Okay, I figured you was going to get there, so I'll hold that.
Absolutely. All right, so remember, we're covering this pretty logically, though, so the same way that you'll do it, I'm going to go ahead and train you on. So think about this. You're sitting down, you're at your office, you're at home, and you just got done creating your presentation, so your next step, of course, is going to be save your presentation. Well, let's think about this for a second. How do I save this presentation? Well, what is this presentation still? This presentation is still PowerPoint. Just because we're integrating Turning Point slides in here doesn't change the way that we're going to save it. Always remember this. Turning Point's integrated within PowerPoint. PowerPoint is not integrated within Turning Point. I don't think Bill Gates would be very happy about that. Therefore, I'm still saving it the same way that I would always save any PowerPoint presentation. So I went to Save As a PowerPoint, and I can save this to my documents, a shared network, a flash drive, or any other place that I would normally save a presentation. Nothing at all has changed. You guys have any questions on where to save? All right, now before we move on and talk about those 8 steps of running a presentation, it is absolutely necessary that we'll talk about the required hardware. So Alan, right now, on the left-hand side, I am projecting our 4 RF response cards. So which one of these response cards over here on the left are going to be the ones that you guys are going to be using?
We have the one where your cursor is now.
Okay, so the response card RF LCD, very nice response card. Now the great thing with the LCD response card is that it does function the same way as our standard RF response card, but this one does show you answer confirmation, channel confirmation, signal strength, as well as battery life, which makes it very nice to be able to visually see it. Now here's the greatest thing about all of these response cards. Every single response card that you have purchased, including every single receiver, whether that's one receiver or 100 of them, we ship them to you all set to the same exact radio frequency channel. Now what does this mean? Well, basically, if you're going to be the only one who is using TurningPoint at a given time within a 200-foot radius, this is absolutely nothing but a plug-and-play system. Now what I mean by this is that if I'm the only one within 200 feet who's using TurningPoints, the only thing I have to do before I start my PowerPoint is to plug in my receiver, and then I run the presentation. And of course, when I arrive on a TurningPoint slide, my audience is going to be able to pick up their response cards, click one button to respond, and I will automatically get those responses. Notice I mentioned nothing about an on or off switch, a registration code, or licensing code. This is a plug-and-play system 100% of the time as soon as you take it out of the package. Unless you do indeed have somebody else within 200 feet who is also using TurningPoint at the exact same time you are, and they're also on the same TurningPoint channel. If this is the case, one of us is going to need to change the channel on both our receiver, which I'm showing right now at the bottom middle, and each one of the response cards working with the receiver, because we need to be on an opposite channel than anybody else within 200 feet. Now, Alan, let me ask you this. Is this ever going to be the case where more than one presentation is going on at a single time?
Yeah, I'm afraid so. We're changing classes, and we're going to have to.
Okay.
We're going to have to get another receiver, and then we're going to have to figure out what we're going to do with these response cards. But yep.
Sure, absolutely. Well, since that is going to be the case, then I absolutely do need to cover the process of changing the channel on a receiver and also the response card if it's necessary. So if I need to change the channel on my receiver, the very first thing I need to do is plug the receiver into the USB port, and I've already done this. The second thing I need to do is open up TurningPoint, and of course we're already there. Now to change a receiver channel, I'm going to bring up my TurningPoint ribbon by clicking on my tab. Now I'm going to come over to the right of Insert Object to where it reads Tools and left click. When I left click on Tools, you're going to notice at the very bottom of the menu I have Settings. When I click on Settings, this opens up my TurningPoint settings. Now don't get overwhelmed by everything you see from within here, because the only thing we're focusing on for us at this time is in the upper left-hand corner where it reads Response Device. I'm going to left-click on Response Device, which now highlights it. Notice over here on the right-hand side that I have a category which reads Response Card Channels. Now, since I do have a receiver plugged into my USB port, it is registering it with the identification number, and over here to the right-hand side, it's displaying what channel my receiver is currently set to. Now, by default, the channel that all of our hardware is set to, regardless of where in the world it's shipped to, is channel 41. And you can see mine's already set there. But what if I have somebody else within 200 feet who is also using 41? I need to change this. So to change this channel, I'm just going to left-click over top of the 41, which now gives me a drop-down menu. From this drop-down, I can change my receiver anywhere between channel 1 all the way down to 82. I have 82 total options of channels I can be on with TurningPoint. It doesn't matter which one I decide, because they all have equal strength and equal frequency. We just want to make sure that nobody else within that 200-foot range is also using that same channel. So I was on 41, and now I just changed it to 45. This is the only thing I need to do from this menu. I can now move down to the lower right-hand corner, click the Done tab to escape. The channel change on that receiver is now successful. I have done it. So let me briefly review those steps. Plug the receiver in first, and then open up TurningPoint. From the TurningPoint ribbon, click the Tools tab. Go down to Settings. Don't worry about all the other stuff going on in Settings for right now. Just click on Response Device in the upper left-hand corner. You can now see the second category to the right is Response Card Channels. You're going to see the identification number and what channel it's currently set to. As we speak right now, if you guys have never changed a channel on any hardware, it's all sitting on channel 41. Are there any questions on the process of changing a receiver or when this would need to be done?
Nope.
All right, very good. Now let's think about this. I just changed the channel on my receiver from 41 to 45. But all of my response cards, and by the way, this response card functions the same way as your LCD screen. Every single one of my response cards is also set by default to channel 41. Well, if I use these response cards right now with my receiver, it's not going to work because they're on a separate channel. So before I begin my presentation, I need to make sure that I change the channel on each one of these response cards to get them on the same channel as that receiver. To do this involves a three-step process on each response card. In the lower left-hand corner of your response card, you're going to have a CH button. By clicking on the CH button, you begin the process. Step number 2, you type out your channel, which in our case is 45. My third and final step is to click the CH button again. So it's CH, channel number, CH. Once this response card picks up a new channel, since you guys have the LCD cards, you're going to have the LCD screen right in the middle that will show you what channel it is now set to. Okay, that's the real benefit of using those LCD cards, that it will show you that. So once again, three-step process. CH, channel number CH. We will see in the LCD screen what channel it is currently set to. We need to get these on the same channel as the receiver. Now, it is very important to note that once you change the channel on both the receiver as well as a response card, it's going to stay on that channel until you change it again. So if I just change my receiver from 41 to 45, basically I can unplug this receiver, take it over to your computer, it's still going to say it's on channel 45. I'm not changing it on the software. I'm changing it on the physical piece of hardware. Same thing with those response cards. Once I change them to 45, they will remain on that channel until I change them again. Alan, do you guys have any questions on the process for changing response card channels or when this would need to be done?
No.
All right, very good, guys. Well, now let's get to the fun part, and that is, of course, running our presentation. So I'm going to make this as practical as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and close this down and get back to my desktop. And now we're going to run through the 8 steps of successfully running TurningPoint. And remember, you're going to get this one-page document at the very end. So let's make this as realistic as possible. So here I am sitting, and let's just say I have students filing in right now, and my students are picking up response cards, and I'm ready to begin a presentation. So my very first step of running a TurningPoint presentation is to plug my receiver into the USB port. That's step number 1. Step number 2 is to open up my TurningPoint software. Well, as we've learned, when TurningPoint opens up, it's just going to open up a blank PowerPoint presentation. So now step number 3 is to open up the specific PowerPoint that I'm going to use. Now step number 4 is not something we have covered yet, and it is only going to be something I cover if it's something you guys are going to immediately be using, and that is tracking individual results. So if you're tracking individual student results, at this time we would select a participant list. If we're not interested in tracking individual results, and we just want to see how the class is answering as a group, we can skip over step 4 and go to step number 5. And that's what I'm going to do for right now, because I'm going over the required steps. Step number 5 is the last one before we run the PowerPoint, and this is something called Reset the Session. Notice on my TurningPoint ribbon on the far left-hand side how I have a Reset tab. When I click on Reset, my first option is indeed Session. Once I select Session, it's going to reset every single one of my TurningPoint slides to get them ready to pull my audience. As you're going to see, it's going to get rid of the 33% on each chart and bring it back down to 0%. I'm now ready to run my presentation. I need to reset, though, before I run that presentation. Now, I'm ready for step number 6. Step number 6, of course, is running the PowerPoint. So basically, I'm just going to go to my slideshow as I always would. And let me get rid of those WebEx tools that are in my way. Now I'm going right from the beginning. Now, of course, my first slide was just my welcome. My second slide was, of course, my agenda. Now, the third slide that I have in the presentation was the very first TurningPoint slide that we inserted. Now, we know that it's a turning point because in the upper right-hand corner, we have what's called a show bar. I want you guys to view your attention to the very upper right-hand corner where it reads Polling Open. This polling opened up automatically. I didn't touch anything on my computer wireless, remote, or otherwise, for this to take place. So if the polling opens up automatically, that means that my students can begin answering this question immediately, as soon as the slide comes up. Now I want you to notice a little bit left to the polling open where it reads responses. As each participant responds to the question, you're going to see this number accumulate in real time. So I, of course, have 2 response cards sitting in front of me, and I just answer the question using the 2. And I can see that both cards have responded because, of course, I have a number 2 below responses. So once I can see that everybody in my class has responded to the question, to shut down the polling just involves 1 advance on the slide. And when I say advance, I'm talking about the same way that we would always advance on a PowerPoint slide. So you can use your mouse, spacebar, enter key, wireless remotes, whatever you're using for PowerPoint, you can go ahead and keep it the same. Myself, that's my mouse. So now my first left click of the mouse has now shut down my polling and populated my results. So to recap that, as soon as you arrive on a TurningPoint slide, polling opens up automatically. You don't have to do anything for that to take place. Regardless, polling always opens. At that time, your participants can pick up their response cards and begin answering the question immediately. Just to the left of polling open, where it says responses, you can see how many people have responded in real time. Once you're satisfied with that number, to shut down the polling just involves any way that you would normally advance in a PowerPoint. For me, that's a click of the mouse. This has now shut down the polling and immediately populated my results right on the slide. Alan, do you guys have any questions in regards to running through a basic TurningPoint slide?
That's pretty easy.
Absolutely. Yeah, very easy, and as you can see, it's still pretty consistent with what you would do in PowerPoint. There's nothing really special here. All right, so we're going to go ahead and advance to our second interactive slide that we have here. And as always, polling has opened up automatically. So at this time, my students can immediately begin answering this question, and we can see how many people have answered just to the left of polling open where we have responses. But if we recall with this one, we actually did a couple of extra things. The first thing that we did was insert a countdown timer. Now, unlike my polling opening up automatically, my countdown timer does not start automatically. It actually waits for my first advance in the presentation before it comes in. The reason it does this is because we want to give our students an opportunity to read the question and the answer choices before they see a countdown timer ticking down on them. So now that I've given an opportunity to read the question, I'm just going to click 1 time, and there's my countdown timer. Now this timer is actually functional. What I mean by this is I can bring my cursor over top of it. This now gives me the opportunity to click a plus tab to add 5 seconds to it, minus tab to subtract 5 seconds. I can also click a pause tab, which will allow me to keep it right there to give my audience a little bit more time to respond to this question. Now when this timer does reach 0, it's going to automatically change the polling from open to closed, and at this time, none of my students in the class will be able to respond to the question. Now the polling is closed, it's going to take 1 more advance or a left click to show the results. And since I did use a correct answer indicator, my next click is going to bring that in. So notice how everything's on a sequence. So if we are using a countdown timer, the first click brings it in. The second click brings up the chart, and the third click brings up the correct answer indicator if we're using one. Now my suggestion to everyone is that if you're going to use a countdown timer, make sure you use it for all slides. Because if some slides you have a countdown and some you don't, you're going to click and think you're bringing in a countdown timer. But instead, you'll shut down your polling. This is step number 6, which is running through the TurningPoint slides. Alan, do you guys have any questions whatsoever on running through your own presentations?
No. No.
All right, very good, guys. Well, of course, you would normally run through your entire PowerPoint, not escape as soon as you're done with the TurningPoint slides as I did. But when you're done with the presentation, you're now going to go to step number 7. And step number 7 correlates to what's done after the presentation. And this is save results. So to save results, we're going to bring back up our TurningPoint ribbon, and we're going to come to the left of insert slide where it reads save session. That word session is fancy turning tech talk for results. So we are saving results within this tab. So I'm going to click on Save Session. This opens up my default save location, which is my Sessions folder. So I can save my results here, or through my drop-down menu, I can save them to any other location I want to. It doesn't matter where the results get saved to, but we must go through the Save Session tab to do this, because these results are separate from the PowerPoint. They're not getting saved within it. They're getting saved as a completely separate file, and this is actually a .tpz, which stands for Turning Point Zip. Step number 7 is saving results. Alan, do you guys have any questions on that step?
I don't think so.
Now, our 8th and our final step is generating reports. And these reports can either be generated immediately, as I will, or since you'll save the session, you can always come back at a later time. Now, to generate reports, we're going to go to our Tools tab. And from Tools, the very first option is Reports. Now, remember also, the only place we've ever been within Tools, is Settings, which is down at the bottom. So now we're going to go ahead and click on the very first option, which is Reports. Once I select Reports, it's going to ask me to go ahead and select my session. Remember, this is basically asking to please select my results. If I did save it to the default location, I'm going to see it listed below. If I saved it someplace else rather than the default, I need to import it in. And I can do this by clicking on the folder and bringing those results in from a different location. Here's my current session, so I'm going to double click on this. And this now brings me to reports by category. From here, I'm going to select the type of reports that I like to generate from this session. Now, I actually have up to 33 different options, all depending on the information I was trying to collect. Now, for our purposes, I'm going to select the first two, which are graphical results by question, as well as results by question. Now, I'm going to move down to the lower right-hand corner and click on Generate Report. This is going to take the information and generate it right into Excel. Once this happens, this Excel document is going to be completely independent of both TurningPoint and PowerPoints. So we can save it as a workbook, we can print it off, we can email it, or anything else that we would normally do with Excel. We have that option from here. Now, since I did generate more than one report, I can navigate between my different reports through the tabs that I have at the very bottom of my page. So this is our 8th and our final step, which is generating our reports. So remember, once again, when we're done with our presentation, we're going to save our results through the Save Session tab. I recommend, if you can, just save it to the default location. After you save the session, either immediately or at a later time, you want to generate reports. Go to the Tools tab, click on Reports, select your session, which basically, once again, is just a result file. Select the reports you'd like to go ahead and generate. Click on the Generate Report tab. This is going to immediately generate it right into Excel. From there, it is just a completely independent Excel document, nothing to do with TurningPoint and or PowerPoint. Alan, do you guys have any questions on that 8th and final step, which is generating your reports?
I don't think so.
Okay. Now, Alan, I got to let you know that that's the foundation of TurningPoint right there. So that's the foundation of what must be done before, during, and after a presentation. Now, before I transition over to that other piece of software you guys have also downloaded, which is TurningPoint Anywhere, do you guys have any additional questions at this time for TurningPoint?
Yeah, you mentioned individual student. You know, if we assign these clickers to an individual student, how do we record who did what answer?
Very good. Let's go ahead and cover that. So if we're interested in tracking the individual participant results from a presentation, we need to go ahead and create what's called a participant list in advance. Now, Alan, give me an idea in terms of how these cards are being assigned to students. Is this something they're purchasing themselves? Is this something that the instructor is going to pass out to the students? How is it working?
Yeah, no, they're not purchasing themselves. We have 75 cards, and so we're going to assign them, you know, by number, I guess.
Okay. Now, are the instructors going to have access to these cards ahead of time where they can put the information in a list?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure, because I want to make sure that I show you the appropriate way and what's going to be the best way for you guys to create your list.
Yeah, these cards won't leave the room.
Very good. That's good to know, too, so they're not going to leave the room. Excellent. Now, if we need to create a participant list, we don't need a specific presentation open like I do, because once we create the list and save it, we can use it with any presentation. So once we open up TurningPoint, we're going to click on the Participants tab from the TurningPoint ribbon. Now, when I click on Participants, we're going to see that our second option down is something called the Participant List Wizard. This is what I select. When I select the List Wizard, It is now going to prompt me to go through a 5-step process to successfully create this participant list. Step number 1 is just to select the template. Education is already selected for me, so I'm going to keep it right there and click Next. Step number 2, it wants us to select list fields, or in other words, what generic information do we want to see within the list? Now, I say generic because this is no information I can generate a report on. This is just for your own information, stuff that you want to see in a column format within that list. Now, by default, it gives me last name, first name, and student ID. Let's say, for instance, I don't need the student ID. A double click will take it out of there, bring it back over here to the available fields. Same thing on the left. If there's something that I would like in the available fields, a double click will bring it in the selected fields. This is step number 2, which is selecting list fields. When we click Next, it brings me to step number 3 out of our 5, which is selecting groups for the participant list. Now, this is something that I would cover in a step 2 training class. Okay, this is assigning teams for competitions and groups for tracking demographics. Now, and this is never a one-time offer with training. And so, of course, we're not going to get through everything TurningPoint has to offer, but if you guys ever want to reconvene, talk about some of the additional options, this would be something we would cover. But for our purposes today, we're going to bypass it since it is not a required step and click Next. Step number 4, we want to go ahead and name this participant list, and we want to name it something specific to that class or, something that's going to key us off to when we need to use the list. For instance, if I'm teaching an economics class, I'm going to go ahead and type out economics, and maybe it's a 101. So when I come back in, I know exactly what the list is for that particular class. Now, before I click Finish and show you the final step, let me just go ahead and recap how we got to this point. Step number 1, we selected a template. Step number 2, we selected our list fields, and we kept it with first and last name. Step number 3, we bypassed, and this is adding teams for competitions and groups for demographics. Step number 4, we named our participant list. And finally, we click Finish. It's going to tell me I modified the template. That's because I took out the student ID. It's going to ask me, do I want to save it as a custom template? I do have that option. But for right now, I'm just going to say no. We finally have Step 5. Step number 5 is where I add in the student information into the list. Now, to get more columns and rows to add more students, all I'm doing is clicking the Enter tab on my keyboard. Now, I want you to first of all take a look at how I have 2 columns for first name as well as last name. These columns are in here because I decided this from Step 2, which was my list fields. If I would have kept student ID, I would have also seen an additional column for that. Regardless of what I decide from the list fields, though, in this final step, I'm always going to have a column for device ID. Now, I have a very important decision to make from this step. As the instructor who has access to these cards ahead of time, I can go ahead and pre-assign these cards to each individual by matching up a device ID with the person I want using that card from this step. Now, the other thing I can do here is go ahead and add in all of my students in terms of their first and last name, but keep this device ID column blank, not pre-assign the cards. And as the students come into my room, they can basically pick up any card they want to. But before I begin my presentation, they would register their card to their name through something called the RealTime Registration tool. We're going to talk about the 2 different ways to do this. So if I make the decision that I want to pre-assign these cards to the students, so right now I'm assigning cards students. The first thing I'm going to do is put my student names in here. Now, hopefully, you have some type of roster saved within Excel or just a regular delimited file that you can go ahead and copy and paste in here. And you can copy and paste the entire roster.
So Excel will copy and paste?
Yeah, you can copy and paste actually the entire thing. It doesn't have to be even one student at a time.
Cool.
Now, unfortunately for me, I don't have a roster, so I'm just going to go ahead and manually type out 3 student names. So there's my 3 students. And I've made a decision that I want to go ahead and pre-assign these students a response card. So the first person I have on my list is Chris Goman. And I just picked up a card. To assign Chris a card, I'm going to turn that card over to the back. And immediately below the barcode is going to be that device ID. So the device ID on this card that I have in front of me is 2B0E5A. So if this was a real list, Chris Goman has now just been assigned this card. And actually, all this is case sensitive. I didn't realize that it didn't have cap locks on, so I better fix that. It's also important to note that it's always going to be letters A through J, and it's always going to be numbers 0 through 9. You will never, ever have a letter O. So I just assigned Chris this card. What this means is when Chris comes into my room and I'm going to use this participant list, he must pick up this exact card. If he picks up a different card, his responses are going to be attributed to a different student. I would do the same thing for each student that I have in this list. Pick up a different card and assign them a different one via the device ID. Alan and everybody else, do we have any questions on the first way to create a participant list by pre-assigning the cards?
No.
All right. Now we have a second way. The second way involves still going through those 5 steps involved in the list wizard, but now this time I'm not going to put anything in ahead of time for the device ID. I'm going to keep this column 100% blank. I'm still putting in all my student names though. I'm going to move down to the lower right-hand corner, click Done, and now my list is saved. So let's get back to the situation and when we're ready to run this. Step number 4 is selecting our participant list. So this is what I'll do. To select the participant list, in the upper right-hand corner, I have a drop-down menu. Any list that I've ever created is going to be located here. You can see I got a whole bunch of them. So I know the list that we just created is Economics 101. So I click it. Now this list is engaged to use with this presentation. Now, Ellen, if I pre-assign these cards to the device ID, I'm ready to run my PowerPoint. But I didn't do that, though. I kept that column for device ID blank. So now I have an additional step before I begin the PowerPoint. That is to click on the Participant tab again and to select the RealTime Registration tool. This now brings up my participant list. I need to open up the registration tool by clicking on the Open Close tab in the upper right-hand corner. Now what's going to happen is the students are going to find where they're located in the list and click on the corresponding button. For instance, if my name is Rob McMillan, I can see I'm number 3. Therefore, I'm clicking button number 3 on my response card. If my name is Chris Goman, I'm clicking button number 1 on my response card. So on and so forth. Now, if I have more than 10 students in this participant list, after 15 seconds, it's going to rotate to the second 10. It's still going to be listed as 1 through 9 and 0, though, because that's how the cards are laid out. There's no such thing as an 11, 12, or 13. If we need to pause that every 15 seconds, this does turn into a pause tab down at the bottom middle. We can advance to a screen that's after this or go back to a previous with the tabs to the left and to the right. The reason we want to use the real-time registration tool is if we don't have access to the response cards ahead of time, therefore we can't pre-assign them, or we don't want to go through what is sometimes a tedious process of typing out each one of those device IDs. This allows students to pick up whatever card they want, but before we begin the presentation, they register the card to their name. There's 2 ways in which individuals will use this real-time registration. The first way they'll use it is a mechanism to go ahead and permanently assign the cards. So I may say to my students, okay, you just went through the real-time registration tool. Take a look at that card you have. This is going to be the same card that you would always use for any other presentation we would ever do. So I just use this as a mechanism to assign the cards. The other way to use this real-time registration tool is each class period, they would pick up a different card. And we would go through the same process of accessing the real-time registration tool, and they would just register a different card to their name and override the information that's in here. Once everybody has registered their card, we X out of it. It's going to ask us do we want to save the changes, and we say yes. Now we're ready to run the presentation. Alan, do you guys have any questions on that real-time registration tool?
That's awesome.
It's a nice option. It definitely gives you some possibilities of how to assign the cards, and it really just all depends on what you want to do. If you want to pre-assign, that's cool. If you don't want to pre-assign and let them pick up whatever card they want, then that's an option for you as well. Now, some of you may be thinking, well, what's the whole point of doing this participant list? Well, what we're trying to accomplish is that when we're done with the presentation and we go into our report screen, notice how we have all of these individual reports. I can do answer detail, response detail, score detail, and I got a whole number of other things. Okay, so if I want to see how Rob McMillan answered every question, if I want to see how Chris Goman answered every question, I want a percentage on right or wrong, and I want to be able to actually give him that total. I can do that when I generate those individual reports. I can even generate reports with each individual on their own page. That way I can go ahead, and if I have 30 students, I have 30 pieces of paper, and each person has their score, has all the questions on it, whether or not they got it right or wrong. So this truly can be a nice assessment tool. Okay, so I know that we got a little bit of time left, not much, but I do want to go ahead and transition over and just give you a brief little introduction to what TurningPoint Anywhere is all about. But before I do that, Alan, do you guys have any other questions on creating, running presentations, or constructing and loading these participant lists within TurningPoint?
I don't think so. As we start going with this, then we'll be able to add more and do more with it once we get comfortable with it. So that's good.
Absolutely. And Alan, like I said, I mean, it's always an open invitation to schedule some additional trainings. Now, of course, we covered maybe about 5% of what the software is actually capable of, but without that 5%, you're not going to understand the other 95. Okay, so we need to lay that foundation, what we did today, and if you guys are interested in learning some of that extended functionality, well, you're going to have my contact information so we can always set something additional up.
Okay.
All right, so right now I'm going to open up TurningPoint Anywhere. And you're going to notice TurningPoint Anywhere is a whole lot different, because all we have in TurningPoint Anywhere is this floating show bar. Now, the great thing with TurningPoint Anywhere is that I can pull in any environment. So I don't have to use PowerPoint. I don't have to use anything for that matter, and I can use TurningPoint Anywhere. So let's say that I just want to ask my students a verbal question. Well, I still have that same receiver plugged in. I still have the same response cards. Just by clicking on this tab to the far left-hand side, which is Start/Stop Polling, I have opened the polling on whatever my verbal question might have been. So maybe my verbal question was, who's going to win the Sugar Bowl, 1 for Ohio State or 2 for Arkansas? So right now all my students are responding to the question I just asked. And the same button that I just used to open the polling, I'm now going to click to shut it down, and you can see that I automatically see the results here. Okay, so I get immediate feedback in any environment. Let's say maybe go ahead, Alan.
But that was Arkansas, right?
Oh, no, that was Ohio State, Alan, I'm sorry. I knew I always get a reaction anytime I involve either professional or collegiate sports teams there. Now notice this, I'm on MSN.com, and maybe I want to ask the question based on consumer recalls of the year. So I ask the question, I open up polling. My students are going to go ahead and respond based on this question, shut down the polling, and I automatically see the results right over top.
Now, how are you getting that answer? That's my question. You're just given a choice of 1 or 2?
Yeah, so I may say, so what do you guys think on this consumer recall of the year? So what is your opinion? Is it consumer recall of the year number 1 for eggs or number 2 the Toyota brakes? And then I would open up the polling, they would respond, and I'd shut it down, I could see, oh, 100% of my class thinks it's the egg recall.
Okay, so it's only a 2-question poll.
Well, it doesn't have to be, but I only have 2 response cards with me, that's why. I could give them 10 options, so let me do something different here. So one of my cards I'm going to press 1, the other one I'm going to press 0, which represents 10. Now there we go. Show that chart again here. So I can see that one person said 1 and the other person said 10. So no, it's just like TurningPoint. You can still have up to 10 responses.
Okay.
Now, of course, we could spend a whole nother hour going over TurningPoint Anywhere, Alan. I just want to give you guys an introduction to what it's all about.
Well, a lot of times they do review on their tests and stuff, and just a verbal review, and they can ask those questions.
Absolutely.
And they can get an immediate response. It's not anything that's going to report, but it's going to give a response.
You're absolutely right. Now, with TurningPoint Anywhere, it actually does have all that same functionality that I just showed you with TurningPoint. So I could go down here to Tools, go to Reports, and in the middle here, check this thing. I want you guys to see this real quick. I got a results by question with screenshot. So it'll show me exactly what was on the screen at the time I shut down polling. So I know with question 2, I asked about this consumer recall. And coming back in here, I can see, oh, it looks like 100% said eggs, and maybe I could see that 2 days later. So I still have all that reporting functionality. I can still even do participant list to track those individual results and how each individual student was answering. But as we can see, it's not integrated within PowerPoint. And the reason it's not because you're not always using PowerPoint. This gives you the luxury and the versatility to have a polling application that's used in any environment, not just PowerPoint.